Blood of Jesus! Blood of Jesus! Beatrice screamed, trembling as she stared at the beautiful red box in her hands. Inside the box lay an unspeakable horror, a lifeless frog, its dull, lifeless eyes seeming to stare back at her. Her body shook uncontrollably as she placed the box on the table. Her voice was loud enough to rattle the stillness of the night. "Honey, honey, what's wrong?" Vincent shouted, running into the room, alarmed by her piercing scream. Beatrice pointed at the box with a trembling hand. Look inside," she stammered. Vincent hesitated but then leaned closer, flipping the lid of the box open. His eyes widened in shock as he saw the lifeless creature lying within. He closed the box immediately, turning to his wife with a concerned expression. "Who sent this? Was there any note or message in the box?" he asked, trying to make sense of the bizarre gift. Beatrice shook her head, her cheeks wet with tears. "Nothing. No message. Just that thing," she said, her voice breaking. Vincent's face darkened with worry, but he forced himself to remain calm for her sake. Beatrice and Vincent had been inseparable for years. Their love was the envy of many, and both families had wholeheartedly accepted their relationship. On Beatrice's birthday, Vincent decided to take the next step. At a beautifully decorated restaurant filled with cheerful laughter and soft music, Vincent dropped to one knee, holding out a sparkling diamond ring. "Beatrice, ever since I met you, my life has changed for the better. You bring me peace, love, and joy. Will you marry me?" His voice trembled with emotion. Tears welled up in Beatrice's eyes as she exclaimed, "Yes, yes, I will." She pulled Vincent to his feet and hugged him tightly, their laughter echoing around the room. The entire restaurant erupted into applause and cheers, with onlookers snapping pictures of the happy couple. It was a night to remember, a fairy-tale moment that marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. When Beatrice returned home late that night, she found her mother seated in the living room. Her father was already asleep. "Good evening, Mum. Guess what?" Beatrice began excitedly, but her mother cut her off, her tone sharp. "What is good about this evening, Beatrice? Do you know how late it is? You've been out with Vincent all day, and now you're just coming back." "I'm sorry, Mum," Beatrice replied, barely able to contain her excitement. "But something amazing happened tonight." "What is it?" her mother asked, still frowning but now curious. "He proposed, Mum. Vincent asked me to marry him," Beatrice exclaimed, showing off her engagement ring. Her mother's face lit up with joy. "Oh, thank you, Jesus. Finally. Beatrice, this is wonderful news. Go and tell your sisters, they'll be so happy." Beatrice hurried to the room she shared with her two older sisters. "Sister Ginika, Sister Amora, wake up. I'm engaged," she screamed, her excitement spilling over. "Are you serious?" Amora asked, admiring the ring on Beatrice's hand. "We have a wedding to plan," she added, her voice filled with excitement. Ginika forced a smile. "So you'll be getting married before us, your elder sisters?" She said with a laugh, though something flickered in her eyes. Despite Ginika's comment, the sisters celebrated Beatrice's good news with genuine joy. Beatrice, the youngest of three siblings, was adored by her parents for her beauty, calm demeanor, and intelligence. She had met Vincent years ago at a wedding, where his charm and confidence had instantly captured her attention. Vincent, a wealthy businessman, had lavished Beatrice with love and gifts, earning her trust and the admiration of her friends. He had even supported her through school until she graduated and became a government class teacher, her lifelong dream. Their relationship flourished over the years, and Vincent's proposal marked the culmination of their love story. After Vincent proposed that evening, he couldn't contain his excitement. With a wide grin, he drove straight to his parents' house to share the good news. His sudden arrival at the late hour caught his parents by surprise. But when he announced his engagement to Beatrice, their surprise turned into pure joy. His mother, overwhelmed with happiness, twirled around the living room, clapping her hands. "Very soon, I'll be a grandma," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. Vincent's parents had grown deeply fond of Beatrice over the years, embracing her like their own daughter. They had long wished for this moment and welcomed the news with open arms. Meanwhile, in Beatrice's home, her mother, deeply concerned about her youngest child getting married, felt the need to share some advice. Late one night, she called Beatrice to the sitting room for a heart-to-heart talk. "Beatrice, my daughter," her mother began, her tone serious yet tender. "I am happy you will soon be married, but you must understand, marriage is not something to rush into. It's different from dating. Yes, you've been with Vincent for years, but do you truly believe he will make a good husband?" "Yes, mother," Beatrice replied quickly. "Vincent is the best man for me. I'm sure of it." Her mother leaned forward, her eyes searching Beatrice's face. "I hope he has been faithful to you. I hope there isn't another woman whose heart is broken or promise." Beatrice sighed, her patience wearing thin. "Mother, enough. Vincent is a sweet, decent man. He has never cheated on me, and he never will. I swear on my life." Her mother's face darkened, her expression a mix of concern. "Beatrice, never swear for any man," she said gravely. "You don't truly know someone until you're married to them. But, there's one more thing." "What now, mother?" Beatrice asked, frustration bubbling in her chest. "I want us to visit my pastor," her mother said, cautiously. "Let him pray for your union and confirm if you two are truly meant to be together. We need to cancel any spiritual obstacles or things we should be worried about." Beatrice's eyes narrowed as her frustration turned into outright anger. "Mother, why must everything involve pastors? Pastors are not God. Haven't you heard of how some of them ruin families? They can't dictate my husband for me. Please, let's stop this nonsense." Her mother's expression softened, sensing her daughter's growing anger. "Okay, my daughter. I'm sorry. I'm only worried because I'm your mother," she said gently, her voice trembling with unspoken fears. A date was quickly set by both families for the grand traditional and white wedding, just a few weeks away. As the days passed, the wedding day finally arrived. Beatrice looked stunning in her white gown, her face glowing with happiness. The venue was decorated beautifully, with balloons and flowers everywhere, creating a magical atmosphere. Family, friends, colleagues, and well-wishers from all around gathered to celebrate, bringing gifts for the newlyweds. Food and drinks were shared among the guests, adding to the festive mood. Some guests were still enjoying the delicious food while others danced on the floor, celebrating with the couple. Laughter and joy filled the air as everyone joined in the fun. It was everything Beatrice had imagined, and more. As the evening came to an end, guests started presenting their gifts. The couple stared in surprise at the mountain of presents before them. There were so many gifts, it seemed impossible to count them all. They exchanged glances, feeling overwhelmed by the love and generosity surrounding them. The celebration was coming to an end, and guests were starting to leave. Vincent and Beatrice stood there, staring at the huge pile of gifts in front of them. They had no idea how they would fit everything into the car. They had planned to go straight to the hotel for their honeymoon, but now, with so many gifts, they weren't sure what to do. Beatrice's mother, who had been standing nearby, stepped forward, looking worried. "My in-law, Beatrice, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice full of concern. Beatrice sighed. "Oh, Mum, the gifts are too much. Vincent's car won't fit them, and we were supposed to leave for the hotel." Her mother smiled and reassured them. "Don't worry, my daughter. Just go ahead. Where's the house key? Your sisters and I will handle the gifts." Vincent raised an eyebrow, still unsure. "Are you sure? Do you need help? We can stay and help." No, it's fine," Beatrice's mother said. "Go enjoy yourselves. We'll take care of everything." Beatrice felt a bit relieved. "Okay, Mum. Here's the house key. Please just lock up when you're done." "Thank you." Just as they turned to leave, Beatrice's mother called them back, her voice suddenly more serious. "Vincent, Beatrice, I think we should call the pastor to pray and anoint the gifts. He's still around," her mother said, glancing around the hall as the last few guests trickled out. Her gaze lingered as though searching for something or someone. Beatrice laughed and shook her head. "Mum, you worry too much. Anoint the gifts. What could they possibly do to us? They're just simple presents from our well-wishers. They don't need to be blessed. Anointing them seems a little over the top." Her mother hesitated, her eyes still searching for the pastor. She didn't spot him immediately but pressed on. Okay, but be careful, my children. Gifts can sometimes bring more than you expect. A small chill ran down Beatrice's spine at her mother's words. She quickly brushed it off, forcing a smile. We'll be fine, Mum. Don't worry. Relieved, Vincent and Beatrice made their way out to the car. He drove them straight to the luxurious hotel he had booked for their honeymoon. Everything was perfectly arranged for them, just as Vincent had planned. Meanwhile, back at the venue, Beatrice's mother was busy calling her older children, Amora and Ginika, to help with the gifts. The pile was huge, and the night was growing late. Ginika, however, was not pleased. What's the meaning of this, Mum? She complained harshly. Isn't it enough that Beatrice is getting married before us? Now you want me to help pack her gifts? This is an insult. Her mother sighed, pleading with Ginika. Please, Ginika, just help out. We have to get this done. Grumbling, Ginika finally agreed, and they started packing the gifts into bags. But they didn't have time to organize them properly, and the task was hurried and messy. Beatrice's mother, seeing the situation, quickly called a taxi driver to transport the gifts. When the driver arrived, the family quickly loaded the gifts into the car, not bothering to arrange them neatly since it was so late. When they finally arrived at the house, Beatrice's sisters and mother rushed to put the gifts in an empty room, still disorganized, without taking the time to arrange them. The taxi driver was already threatening to leave, and they didn't want to delay him any longer. Beatrice and Vincent had spent a few blissful days in the hotel, and Beatrice felt like a queen. Vincent made sure to take her to places she'd never been before, pampering her in ways she'd only dreamed of. She couldn't help but thank God for blessing her with a man like Vincent. The honeymoon came to an end, and it was time to go home. Vincent drove them back, both of them beaming with happiness. As they stepped inside their new home, Beatrice couldn't contain her joy. We're finally home, she exclaimed, smiling brightly. I'm officially your wife. Vincent hugged her tightly, promising, I'll never disappoint you. As Beatrice and Vincent sat down to rest after their long journey, Beatrice suddenly remembered something. Her face lit up with excitement as she spoke. Honey, I just remembered. Since we're back, let's go inside and check out the gifts. I'm so excited to see what's inside. Vincent chuckled, trying to match her enthusiasm but feeling too exhausted. My love, I'm tired. Let's do it some other time. Besides, the gifts aren't going anywhere, they're safe in our house. Beatrice sighed, a little disappointed but nodded. Okay, if you say so. We can always unbox them another time. The next morning, Beatrice woke up early to prepare breakfast for Vincent. After setting the table, she went to wake him. Honey, wake up. Aren't you getting ready for work? She said gently, tapping him on the shoulder. Vincent's reaction was unlike anything she had ever seen before. He shot up from the bed, glaring at her with an intensity that sent chills down her spine. What is it? Who told you to wake me up? Are you mad? How dare you interrupt my dream? He barked, his voice sharp and unfamiliar. Beatrice froze, stunned by his outburst. Before she could utter a word, Vincent stormed into the bathroom, slamming the door behind him. She stood there, speechless, her hands trembling. What just happened? Was he talking to me? No, maybe he was half asleep or had a bad dream, she thought, trying to console herself. But the unsettling feeling lingered. That morning, Vincent left the house without touching the breakfast Beatrice had lovingly prepared. He didn't even glance in her direction. As the door closed behind him, Beatrice sat down, her thoughts racing. What is going on? Why the sudden change? Did I do something wrong? That evening, when Vincent returned, he walked past her without a word. Honey, welcome back, she greeted him softly, but he didn't respond. He headed straight to the bedroom, leaving Beatrice standing in the living room, hurt and confused. Gathering her courage, she followed him upstairs. She found him sitting on the edge of the bed, his back turned to her. Honey, what's wrong? You've been acting strange since morning. You didn't eat the breakfast I made, and you didn't even call to check on me like you usually do. Did I do something wrong? Please, tell me so I can apologize, she pleaded, her voice cracking. Vincent let out a heavy sigh, still avoiding her gaze. It's nothing, Beatrice. I just need to rest. Beatrice froze again. Beatrice? She repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. So now I'm just Beatrice to you? Not my love or honey? What's happening, Vincent? Please talk to me. Tears streamed down her face as she stood before him, her heart breaking. Vincent didn't respond. He lay back on the bed and closed his eyes, shutting her out completely. Beatrice sank to the floor, her sobs filling the room. What have I done to deserve this? She thought. Beatrice cried so hard that Vincent had to apologize. Please, baby, I'm sorry. I need rest. I don't need this stress. I'm sorry if I've hurt you, Vincent said, trying to restore peace. He consoled Beatrice, who decided to forgive him since it was the first time. They both slept peacefully that night. The next morning, Vincent woke up and instructed Beatrice to prepare his favorite meal. Beatrice, happy that he was changing, rushed to the kitchen to cook. She served him the food, and as she cleaned the kitchen, she suddenly heard a loud scream. Beatrice! Beatrice! Where are you? Vincent shouted. Beatrice rushed into the dining room only to find Vincent had scattered the food on the table. Is this what your useless mother taught you? Did she not teach you how to cook? He yelled. Wait, Beatrice, do you want to kill me? You want to poison me? Honey, I tasted this food before I served it to you. The food tastes fine. What are you talking about? Or do you just feel like complaining again? Complaining again? So now I'm a nagging man, he retorted, his anger escalating. Who's your honey, her? You want to kill me, you useless woman from a useless family. Enough. Beatrice cried out. Don't bring my family into this. Please. In an instant, Vincent slapped Beatrice for the first time. She screamed, devastated by the unexpected blow. You slapped me, Vincent. I will never let you insult my family. Beatrice cried, still in shock, but Vincent, furious, lashed out again, beating her. Beatrice fought back, but Vincent overpowered her, leaving marks all over her body. He left for work without a second thought. Beatrice was heartbroken. What is happening to Vincent? This is the first time he's raised his hand against me. What's going on? She wondered, tears flowing. Days turned into weeks, and their marriage seemed to fall apart. Peace was nowhere to be found. But then, a glimmer of hope came when Beatrice discovered she was pregnant. Vincent was ecstatic about becoming a father, and his attitude began to change. He started helping around the house, buying gifts, and being more considerate. But one morning, Beatrice woke up in excruciating pain. She didn't understand what was happening, but when she went to the toilet, she was shocked to see blood. Jesus, what is happening? She cried out in horror. She called for Vincent, who rushed her to the hospital. But it was too late. The doctor confirmed her worst fear. I'm sorry, you've lost the pregnancy. Vincent was devastated, but his anger was misplaced. What did you do to my child? You've killed it, he yelled bitterly, accusing Beatrice. Please, Vincent, don't say that, Beatrice begged, weakly. But Vincent was already too far gone in his fury. He packed up and dashed out, calling Beatrice's mother on phone harshly to pick up her daughter. Beatrice's mother arrived, shocked by her daughter's condition. Beatrice, what happened to you? You've lost so much weight and didn't even tell me you were pregnant, she said, concerned. I've suffered, mother. This marriage, it has been my greatest mistake. Vincent has treated me horribly, Beatrice admitted through her tears. I warned you, Beatrice. I told you, don't rush into marriage. Relationships are different from marriage. You should have sought God's guidance first, her mother replied, saddened by her daughter's words. After weeks of being in the hospital, Beatrice was finally discharged, but Vincent didn't even care to check on her. Not a single call or message. She became a shadow of herself. Her marriage had changed her. One day, Beatrice decided to speak with her mother about going back home. Go back. After everything? No, you're staying here, her mother insisted. They reached out to Vincent's family, who deeply apologized, unaware of what was happening. They promised to talk to Vincent. But when Vincent was confronted, he refused to show any remorse. This is my life and my marriage. Let me handle it, he boasted. That lady is evil, a witch. She killed my child with her magic. Vincent, you and I both know Beatrice is not a witch. Losing the baby was a coincidence, stress, an infection, anything could have caused it. If you still love me, please, take Beatrice back, his mother said, her voice breaking as she cried. Vincent, who deeply loved his mother and couldn't bear to see her tears, finally relented. I'll do something about it, he promised, though uncertainty lingered in his heart. Meanwhile, Beatrice had made up her mind to return. The fear of people mocking her for not staying in her marriage loomed large, and her love for Vincent still lingered despite everything. With both families intervening, Beatrice moved back to Vincent's house, hoping for a fresh start. She walked on eggshells, doing everything to avoid triggering Vincent's temper. One day, he would be loving and kind, and the next, he would act like a different person, a cruel man. Beatrice stayed quiet, hoping things would get better. She was too scared of divorce and what people would say about her. After losing their first pregnancy, Beatrice tried her best to conceive again. Her mother's words echoed in her ears. Once you have a child, Vincent will change. Children bring peace and joy to a family. Beatrice believed her mother, but every pregnancy ended in heartbreak. She suffered multiple miscarriages, and the child they all thought would survive tragically died at birth. Vincent's words cut deeper than any wound. You're barren. A witch who eats her own children, he mocked her mercilessly, his voice dripping with contempt. Beatrice became a shadow of herself. Vincent no longer cared about her feelings. When he had a bad day at work, he would come home late, blame her for everything, and beat her. Yet, she stayed because she was too scared of what people would think if she left. Whenever Beatrice saw her friends posting happy pictures of their families online, she told herself, I won't leave my marriage. I know Vincent will change. God, please help me. But deep down, she felt alone, even though she was married. One day, after another beating, Beatrice couldn't take it anymore. She packed a few clothes and went to her mother's house. Mum, I'm tired. I've tried, but it's not working. I can't stay there anymore, she cried. Her mother hugged her tightly. My daughter, it's not the end of the world, she said gently. But let me ask you, how often do you pray about this? Have you taken your problem to God? Beatrice wiped her tears and stayed silent. Not often, Mum. But I've tried. Her mother looked at her lovingly. Beatrice, this is not just a normal problem. Today, Vincent acts like the devil, and tomorrow, his kind. This is more than what you see. It's time to talk to God about this. I'll take you to my pastor tomorrow. Thank God there's a prayer program happening. Beatrice was not a religious woman. She rarely prayed, nor did she believe in miracles. To her, life was about facing challenges head-on, not relying on divine intervention. But this time, things felt different. The pain of suffering multiple miscarriages and the lack of peace in her marriage to Vincent had broken something deep within her. When her mother suggested seeking help from the church, Beatrice hesitated but eventually agreed. What do I have to lose, she thought. The next morning, Beatrice followed her mother to Faithful Grace Assembly, a small but respected church led by Pastor Joseph, a man widely known for his humility and genuine dedication to God. Unlike many others, he never asked for money to give prophecies or prayers. His reputation for being a true servant of God had earned him the trust of many in the community. The church was alive with worship, filled with cries for healing, deliverance, and peace. Beatrice felt out of place amidst the devoted crowd, her hands trembling as memories of her miscarriages and Vincent's cruelty clouded her thought. As the prayer session intensified, Pastor Joseph stepped to the pulpit. His calm yet commanding voice filled the room as he began to minister and deliver messages. Suddenly, his tone shifted, and he called out, Beatrice! Beatrice! The name reverberated through the church, silencing the crowd. Beatrice froze. Was she imagining it? Her mother grabbed her arm. That's you. Stand up, Beatrice. Heart pounding, Beatrice slowly rose to her feet. Her knees felt weak as the weight of 100 curious eyes fell on her. Yes. I'm Beatrice, she said softly, her voice barely audible. The pastor's eyes were kind but firm. Where is your husband? Why have you been losing your babies? And why is there no peace in your home? The words hit her like a thunderbolt. How could he know? Beatrice's lips quivered, but no words came out. Tears streamed down her face as the emotions she had buried for so long began to surface. I don't know, she managed to whisper, her voice cracking under the weight of her pain. Pastor Joseph stepped closer, his voice filled with gentle authority. The Lord has a message for you and your husband. Come back on Sunday. Both of you. Do not fail. Your peace depends on it. The congregation murmured softly, moved by the moment. Beatrice's mother squeezed her hand, her face a mix of hope and urgency. As the service ended, Beatrice walked out of the church with her mind racing. Could this be real? Would Vincent even agree to come? The pastor's words replayed in her head, filling her with a mix of dread and curiosity. For the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope, but it was wrapped in suspense, pulling her into a journey she never imagined taking. When Beatrice and her mother arrived home, Beatrice, who had been deeply worried, quickly asked, "Mother, do you think Vincent will agree to come? Remember, I left his house angrily after he beat me. I'm not sure if he'll show up." Her mother, trying to calm her, replied, "I believe he will. This is what God directed the pastor to do. It's your time, Beatrice. Let's just put it in prayer. We still have a few days before Sunday." That night, Beatrice prayed fervently, asking God for forgiveness and for her situation to change. She repeatedly tried calling Vincent, but he refused to pick up. Still angry, he had thrown her out of the house earlier. Finally, Vincent returned her call. "Hello, Beatrice. Why have you been disturbing me? Did I ask you to leave? You walked away on your own," he snapped, his voice laced with frustration. "Vincent, please, this is not the time for an argument," Beatrice pleaded. "A man of God has requested to see you on Sunday. It's important. He has a message for us both." That Sunday, Beatrice dressed up for church, checking her phone in hopes of a call from Vincent. But there was nothing. She left with hope, knowing she had already sent him the address. At the church, the pastor preached powerfully. After the service, Beatrice decided to speak to the pastor alone and explain what had happened. Just as she was about to approach him, her phone rang. It was Vincent. "Madam, where are you? I've been trying to reach you." "I'm at the church," he asked, his voice sharp. Beatrice, excited, quickly told him where she was. Soon after, they entered the pastor's office. The pastor greeted them and began to pray fervently. After a long prayer, he looked at them, his face serious. "As a couple, how often do you pray together? Do you pray for your marriage? Have you prayed about what's happening to you both?" Neither of them spoke. The tension in the room thickened. The pastor continued, his voice grave. "What is happening to you both is not natural. There's an evil wedding gift in your home that someone gave you. This is the root cause of your troubles." "Who? Who gave us such a thing?" they both asked, their voices filled with curiosity and fear. Beatrice froze as the pastor's words echoed in her head. "A red evil box." She tried to remember if she had seen anything like it among the wedding gifts still stored in the empty room. After the wedding, things had fallen apart quickly. There were so many fights, problems, and sleepless nights that she lost all excitement about opening the gifts. Most of them were still untouched. "Go back to your house and search for a red box," the pastor said again, his voice calm but serious. "Open it, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Whatever you find, bring it back to me here at the church." Vincent was taken aback. He didn't fully believe the pastor, but Beatrice was already determined to do as he said. They drove home, Vincent still unsure of what was happening. As soon as they reached the house, he went to his room to rest, still doubting the pastor's words. But Beatrice, filled with anxious energy, rushed to the empty room where their wedding gifts were stored. She began to open the boxes, one by one. Most of them were small, insignificant, and filled with familiar, ordinary items. But then, she spotted it, a large, beautiful red box. It was heavy. Her heart raced. Could this be the one? With trembling hands, she opened the box. The lid creaked as she pried it open, and when she saw what was inside, she froze in terror. Jesus Christ! "Oh my God," she screamed, her voice a mixture of fear and disbelief. Vincent, hearing the scream from his room, felt something leave his body. His heart pounded in his chest as he ran to her side. Honey, what is it? What happened?" he called out, panic rising in his voice. Beatrice was trembling, pointing at the box. Look inside. "It's a frog, she whispered, horrified. "Is there a name written on it? Who would bring such an evil gift into our home?" Vincent asked, now completely shaken. "It's the pastor, he was right," Beatrice said, her voice barely a whisper. Let's go to him." They picked up the box and went straight to the church. When they got to the pastor's office, he told them to put the box on the floor. Immediately, the pastor started praying and speaking in tongues. For hours, they all prayed, asking God to destroy every curse and evil affecting their lives. Suddenly, the pastor stopped praying and looked at Vincent. "Young man, who is Jessica?" he asked. Vincent looked confused. "Jessica," he repeated. "Yes, who is Jessica to you?" the pastor asked again. Vincent stood quietly for a moment, and then he began to speak. "Jessica was my girlfriend before I met Beatrice. I loved her and did everything for her, but she betrayed me. She cheated on me with my friends. Not only that, but she was violent and obsessed with me. She even hit me several times. I was so hurt and shocked that I had to end the relationship. She didn't want to let me go, though. She kept stalking me and calling me with different numbers. I kept blocking her because she wouldn't allow me to have peace." "Go on," the pastor said. Beatrice, who was surprised, asked, "But what does this have to do with what we are going through?" Vincent continued, "Some time ago, I met her at an event. We talked briefly as old friends. She told me she still loved me and asked if we could get back together. She said she had changed. I told her it wasn't possible because I was already engaged and about to get married. She congratulated me and even asked about the wedding venue. I told her, thinking she was just asking to be polite. But to my surprise, she came to the wedding." Vincent turned to the pastor and asked, "Why are you asking me about her? She is my ex and will always remain my ex." The pastor sighed. "She doesn't want to remain your ex. Jessica is obsessed with you," he said. Vincent's heart raced. "Jessica? What does she have to do with this?" The pastor replied, "She is the one who sent this gift. The box contains a cursed object, a frog. As long as the frog stayed in your house, there would be no peace, no happiness, and no children. Jessica is the reason for all your problems." Beatrice started crying. "So all the pain, the fighting, and the curse of childlessness were because of an obsessed ex-girlfriend?" she asked. "My daughter, calm down. Your problems are over," the pastor said. He carried the box outside, poured anointing oil and kerosene on it, and set it on fire. The frog inside burned, and the curse was broken. Immediately, Vincent and Beatrice felt peace in their hearts. The pastor prayed for them one last time and said, "It is finished." They left the church happy and thankful. Vincent knelt down and begged Beatrice for forgiveness. He promised to be a better husband and kept his word. He became a loving, caring, and God-fearing man. Joy, love, and peace returned to their home. They prayed together and trusted God completely. A few months later, Beatrice became pregnant and gave birth to twins. Their family was filled with joy once again. As for Jessica, her charm backfired, and she was driven mad, tormented by the evil plans she had set in motion. The moral lesson of this story is, sometimes, what seems like a harmless gift can conceal dark intentions. Prayer and faith are powerful shields against evil, and jealousy leads to nothing but destruction. Be careful of what you accept, and always seek God's guidance to protect your peace and happiness. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel, like, share, and comment. Also, click the notification bell so you'll be notified when I post more interesting stories like this. See you in our next video.